One of the great makers of America, of the world. Adam, you've gotten to do a lot of really crazy things. And you're a huge inspiration, obviously, to everybody. I thank you. You're a huge inspiration to me.
Sir. Now I'd like to take some questions from these lovely people in the audience. You got a microphone? You're going to find some questions for me?
I'm going to find some people.
Who's got a question?
Who's got a question?
A young man or young woman with a burning desire with a question. Oh yeah, bring the lights up.
Bring the lights up. We got it. Now, we can only talk about so many things that he's blown up before.
Haven't you blown up everything?
Yeah, you pretty, I mean, what is the thing you haven't blown up yet? What do you got? This is good. First question is, how do you like his hat? Put your hat on.
Nice, good hat.
Can he sign it? We'll try and do that. Okay, can he sign it?
Absolutely, bring it up.
Okay, here we go. You're lucky, you know, he doesn't do this for everyone. Are you inspired by any other? The next question is, are there any other uses for duct tape?
For duct tape?
That you've come up, any new?
Here we go.
Yeah. Throw me the idol.
Oh, here's the
Throw me the idol.
Throw me the whip, I'll throw you the idol. We're actually looking into an Antarctica duct tape special, but Jamie and I are both really concerned that duct tape will just fail utterly in 40-degree below zero weather. So we might do some cold weather duct tape stories.
Cold weather duct tape, I like that.
Yeah, we got to follow Hawaii, our Hawaii episode, with something more challenging.
Go to the Arctic. What do we got? We got a mom here? You've been here all day. You gotta watch the speakers. Hello, how are you?
Good. Do you think he could have made a duct tape compass to get off the duct tape island?
A duct tape compass to get off the duct tape island? Yeah, absolutely. Well, first you need a vessel to hold water, and you can use the sort of the floating cork method as long as you've got a sewing needle. You use the duct tape. You can actually, if you lower it into the water carefully enough, you can make a needle, a sewing needle, float on the surface of the water using surface tension. And the duct tape might just allow you to do that. But yeah, it would point north, magnetic north, and that would give you a compass heading. Now, it may be harder to operate that compass while you're at sea in your duct tape boat, but I think it's totally doable. I'm actually a little shocked it didn't occur to us to do that.
There you go. What do we got? We got a little one here. What's your name?
Max. I was wondering, well, I have two questions. First, can I get this autograph?
We can only do so many autographs.
I am doing, let me tell you, I'm sitting down and doing an autograph session after this.
There you go.
And I'll be signing autographs for a long time for as many people as I can get to.
Copy that. Next question.
And second, what are you going to do if you ever run out of myths?
What are we going to do when we run out of myths? Well, the day we
impossible?
Well, the day we run out of myths, it means that people stop believing stupid things.
I think we have a long way to go before we run out of this.
And on that day, I will be absolutely happy to hand over Mythbusters to the wider world and give it up and retire.
Eyebrow regrowth. How do you treat it?
It turned out not to be as bad. My favorite part about singeing my eyebrow is how much I thought that was funny until Jamie mentioned that I'd also burned off half of my hair, and then my sense of humor went right out the window. Yeah, no, it turns out that just once you get rid of the smell of the burning hair, it grows back fairly quickly, luckily. Next question. What do we got?
Yes. Okay.
So, what would you do with limited resources if you're trying to make things?
What would I do, what?
What would your advice be to trying to make things with limited resources?
Limited resources.
As an individual, like you don't have, okay, someone who doesn't have a lot of funds and doesn't have a lot of stuff around them, what do you do?
Well, there's a lot that you can do. First of all, I moved to San Francisco in 1990, and I spent easily the first 5 years. You know, trash day in your neighborhood, when the garbage company tells you to put all your big trash out on the curb, we would go dumpster diving through neighborhoods on that day. That is where I got so much of my furniture, so many of my tools. I found working televisions. I found a DeWalt drill with a battery and a charger that had been thrown away because its forward reverse switch was stuck in the middle. Limited resources, the only limited resource is your brain. Everything else is totally available. You can buy used electronics and desolder stuff off the board and use that. Electronics themselves aren't that expensive, actually. The Arduino as an entry-level kit is ridiculously cheap. Honestly, it's just about having some ingenuity about where you get your stuff. Thrift stores, flea markets. Boy, every second Saturday of the month for years, I would head down at 5 a.m. to the Foothill College Ham Radio swap meet down here. That thing was primordial to my makeup, and I managed to buy all sorts of great tools for about a fifth of what retail was. I was working with limited resources for the longest time, and really, it's just about what you can find out there. Dumpster diving is absolutely the best way to gather tools and materials.
I'd like to reiterate that. We throw everything away in this country, so there's a million resources on the street every day.
No, you go through these industrial parks down here, actually, I'm not advocating running around in the middle of the night because the cops don't like it. Well, that's what they told me. But you go to a company that makes stuff for a living, and their dumpster is often full of stuff that they can't use anymore, but it's like sheet plastic and aluminum and materials and things that you can use in your shop. Half of my shop materials up through all of the 90s were gathered from dumpsters down here in San Mateo in the valley. Next question.
It's only your mind that is a limited resource.
Hi, I wanted to ask, out of the history of the stuff that you've made, what would you consider as your success and possibly your failure?
Like a single thing that was the biggest success?
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's tough.
Single thing that was the biggest success. That's a tough one. I mean, it's kind of like, at any given time, I've got like, again, the video that we put up on Tested of my ZF1 gun. That's like, it's not 10 years, I think it's 13 years in the making. It'll be done maybe in a year or maybe 2 or 3 years, but each of those projects, as it nears completion, becomes my favorite thing in the world. For me, in the making of things, one of my favorite things that happens, and makers can tell you this all over the place, is there's a certain point where a shift starts to happen. A musician will tell you that after a certain period of time of playing the piano, all of a sudden you just know the keys, you know them all. A chess player will tell you that a chessboard to them has a gesture to it rather than a series of moves that they're thinking through. And in the making world, there's a very similar process that happens where you stop having to actually do a lot of problem solving at the bandsaw, and it starts to happen in your head. And that shift feels really great, just to sit there on a plane thinking about how to build something and running through a million ways and messing them up virtually in your head. That feels like a really key success. And it took a while before I realized that I was doing most of my building in my head. My greatest failure, man, I mean, I fail all the time, I mess things up in my shop, I put something into the lathe and I start to try and cut it too quickly and it shatters. I cut myself and get sent to the hospital for some stitches. And that still happens all the freaking time. And I have spoken about failure here at length at Maker Faire, and I actually took that talk, which was I think from 4 years ago, about failure. And well, first of all, I made it shorter, and then I also put some laughs into it because it was kind of relentless when I did it here. And that's going up on the EG website. The EG conference is a sister to the TED conference. And I boiled my story about real abject failure where I betrayed a friend and really screwed them over and felt worse than I've ever felt in my life about it. That thing happens to everybody. It's a central fact of being human that we do that we screw up and we hurt people we love, and sometimes we help people we don't like, and that's just, nobody escapes from that. Oh man, that's such a downer. Let's have a fun question.
We got a fun question. Then I might say, there is no failure, there's only if you're doing, If you're trying, then you're succeeding. This little guy's got a good one.
What is your message for the kids of today on making materials and making robots and things like that?
Making robots?
Specifically, I think for kids of this size.
How old are you?
How old are you?
I am 11.
You're 11.
You're 11.
Well,
message for you, kid.
There's, actually, are you in the Bay Area? Yes?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. I mean, you're in one of the best cities in the world for 11-year-olds. We've got tremendous resources. There are clubs. There are maker groups, there are local maker fairs, you've got to look online and find other communities of people doing the same things. Again, Dean Kamen's first robotics competition is an amazing gateway drug to building robots for real. Because it turns out that making robots isn't that hard. It's really not that difficult. And also the price point's gone way down from back when we were doing BattleBots and trying to find suitable motors for our robots. The robot marketplace is fantastic now. And really, there's safety in numbers. I think my biggest advice would be find other people who want to do the same things you do and work hard on your parents as a group to fund what you're doing.
Timothy Leary said, find the others.
Find the others.
Mythbusters is our family show, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm curious, in the early shows, you and Jamie had sometimes frequencies of disagreements.
Yes.
In the later shows, not so much. What can you say about collaboration and that relationship has changed?
Well, it's funny. So in the early days of Mythbusters, yeah, there's a lot of fighting on camera. That was actually due specifically to one of our early producers who liked to, as the British call it, piss in our ears, which is to wind somebody up about somebody else. And we got really mad at each other, like really significantly, vitriolically angry. And then at a certain point, we just started comparing notes, and we realized that we weren't mad at each other. Now, the fact remains is that we drive each other nuts every day. I can't stress that enough. We drive each other crazy, and we get frustrated with each other on a daily basis. That frustration is based on the fact that no matter what you come up with, him or me, under what circumstances, the other guy is always going to test it and say, why would you do that if this is the case? Maybe you could do it better, maybe this could be. So someone is you're always hitting up on a wall that's suggesting that maybe there's a different way to do it. This is exhausting. Conversationally, it's exhausting. But it also has a tremendous strength to it. And that strength is the fact that while we drive each other crazy, we are informed by a deep respect for each other. So you don't have to like the people that you work with. It is important to trust them and to respect their output. If you're not working for people whose output you respect, you should work for somebody else. Jamie and I, while we drive each other crazy, we know that left to our devices, the other guy would finish the job on his own by the end of the day. So that means that their advice has to be pretty good, so let's pick it apart. And the fact is, when you go back and forth on a solution enough, all of a sudden the right idea shows up and it's like a light went off in the room. And when that light goes off, both of us just back away and like, that's the idea, that's the one we'll do. And honestly, half the time neither of us can tell you who came up with the right idea. Because our egos, while we have healthy egos, our egos don't get involved in the right solution, in making it our solution. They get involved in it being the right solution. The elegant solution is the one that needs to get done, not the one that you want or the credit that you want. It's been a very, very interesting collaboration with that guy. Because again, it's like we've never had dinner alone together, ever. Left to our own devices, we'll be like, all right, see you tomorrow. And we'll go off and, go separately. But the fact remains is I wouldn't want anyone else in my corner helping me build stuff. Because I can see that it makes the product stronger. And all partnerships that I know about, people like Penn and Teller, other friends of mine who are writing teams and stuff like that, they're all based on that kind of push-pull. It's super important and it has a real integrity to it. So if someone's challenging your ideas, it means that you're having to fight for them and to justify them, and that is an inherently robust process. It's instant peer review is what it is. Next question.
Very good. I got a good one here.
So after you build the world's only transparent plastic tuba, what the hell do you do with it? Are there any development companies that aren't rip-offs and scams and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's hard. The noise-to-signal ratio for scammy invention companies is quite high, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of in the roof. Well, I mean, that also gets, you push past that, I think, with community. With cross-checking. It's like, I just taught my sons about searching for a problem, like if you can't make the device that you have work, do a search for how do I make this damn device work, and then add the word forum. And you'll find people having the same problem you have, and they're informing each other. I find when I try and look for stuff and the noise-to-signal ratio is really high because there's a lot of people out there trying to make a buck on it, that as soon as I find the community of people talking about it, I hit real pay dirt. Because it's that human filtering system. Incidentally, do you know that Selmer produced the plastic saxophone in World War II when they... What's that? A plastic trombone. Well, so it was during the war, and all the metal was being requisitioned for the war effort, so Selmer produced a plastic saxophone. I believe that Charlie Parker actually cut an album on a white plastic saxophone.
And wait, what about Pinocchio?
What's that?
Pinocchio is the outsource. Basically, you can have something you need made and outsource to anybody who has a shopbot or a CNC router. So you can do R&D for really cheaply.
That's great.
Yeah, it's out of New Zealand. They're actually over in the expo hall. It's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, all of that community-based stuff is super brilliant and important. I mean,
community wins.
It's absolutely, it's the most vital thing because people are the best filter.
Somebody wanted to know, where'd you go? Who wants to know about the history? How did you wind up doing this?
How did I wind up doing this?
Let's do the quick review.
Okay, the quick review is that I started out wanting to be an actor. I started out wanting to be in commercials. So I was Mr. Whipple's stock boy in a Charmin commercial. I was in Billy Joel's worst music video ever, which I know it's a fairly high bar, but I was in it. And then I wasn't very good at it, so I dropped it somewhere around 19 years old. And I got a job as an assistant animator for a company in New York called the Ink Tank. I moved from that into graphic design, and I moved out to San Francisco. I got into theater. I was started working for George Coates Performance Works here in San Francisco. At the Performance Works, we were building really radical and weird things all the time. 3D displays and props and motorized things and blurring the line between 3D and reality, even in 1990. And I started to get a reputation for building props and building objects that other people couldn't solve or couldn't do. And I started working for Berkeley Repertory Theater, for Beach Blanket Babylon. And my reputation grew, and eventually Jamie Heineman called me and asked me to come work for him in his shop called M5 Studios in San Francisco. This would be around 1994. No, that would be around 1992. I worked with Jamie for about 4 or 5 years until I couldn't stand him as a boss anymore. And I moved on to Industrial Light and Magic, where I worked on films like Star Wars Episode 1 and 2, AI, Space Cowboys, Galaxy Quest, the only movie that I own. Yes. And I have to say, going to ILM and working was like dying and going to nirvana. You know, my first 2 jobs I ever wanted were being a designer for Legos and working on Star Wars. And when I got to ILM, you know, I'm working with guys I've been reading about since I was 12 years old, and it was an amazing place to work. Alas, the ILM model shop is no longer. They got rid of it, which is a very sad thing. I feel like I slipped in under the wire. But somewhere around 2002, Jamie got a call from Discovery about doing this show called Mythbusters. And the difference was that they wanted guys who could build the experiments as well as talk about them and test them and think scientifically. And it really just happened to be this perfect confluence of a set of ideas for a narrative and 2 guys who were absolutely, genuinely curious about what was going on that made the show. It aired in January of 2003. We're coming up on, actually, in 10 days, we celebrate our 10th year of filming Mythbusters.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But nowadays, everything below this level on my head is white. Back then, no white in me, no white on my hair. We've come a long way. The show aired in January 2003. We got a really good rating. We've continued to get really good ratings. In fact, this season, which is running right now, they moved us to Sunday nights. Our ratings are up 20%. So as far as I can tell, there's no end in sight for Mythbusters.
That's a good segue because this little girl here wants to know,
What inspires you every day?
why do you do this? You get up in the morning and do this every day. Not ratings. Tell me it's not ratings.
No, it's not ratings. It's not the money. It's doing something different every day. It's why I got into special effects. It's why I love theater. And I tell you honestly, budding makers, here's a resource for learning how to make stuff. Get into theater. Theater is the gateway drug to making everything. And anything you want to try, you can try. Theater is it, man. Theater is the only art form. It is the first art form that would survive an apocalypse completely intact. So, theater was super important to me. It is doing something different every single day. And it's also, honestly, when we set out, we weren't thinking of the children. We didn't care about the children. We didn't want to inspire anybody. Honestly, it's not something that we think about, and I think that's why kids like it. They know that we're not speaking down to them. But we get emails from you guys. I'll bet you half of you in this room have emailed me, and I read as large a sampling as I can get to. The idea that we're inspiring kids, that we're getting them interested in making things and thinking critically and thinking experimentally, it is by far the most astonishing and humbling, and I feel so grateful that we're doing this result of doing this show. So, I mean, it's you guys that are inspiring me.